Other people's behavior is about them. Your reaction to it is about you. This is one of the simplest and most difficult truths in all of philosophy. Simple because the logic is immediate. What another person does originates in their nature, their history, their fears, their desires, not in you. Difficult because the nervous system does not care about logic. It registers what is happening and responds before the mind has had time to apply any philosophy at all. The colleague's dismissal lands in you before you have decided how to take it. The friend's betrayal registers as pain before you have assessed its full meaning. The stranger's rudeness produces a flash of agitation that is already present before the rational mind arrives to manage it. This gap between what is happening in others and what it produces in you is where most human suffering lives. And it is precisely the gap that Arthur Schopenhauer spent a lifetime trying to close. Not by making the world less difficult. He was a philosophical pessimist. He believed the world is irreducibly difficult and that expecting otherwise is the source of most unnecessary suffering. But by building the philosophical and psychological architecture that allows a person to encounter difficulty without being governed by it, to be present to what others do without being determined by what others do. That architecture is what this video is about. And it is more demanding and more liberating than most discussions of emotional resilience ever reach. Let's begin with Schopenhauer's foundational insight, the one that makes everything else in this philosophy possible. Other people do not act from free, considered choice in the way we instinctively believe they do. They act from the will, the irrational, impersonal, blind force of desire and striving that drives all living things without purpose, without genuine deliberation, without the careful consideration of your feelings that you would like to believe accompanies behavior that affects you. The person who was rude to you this morning was not carefully evaluating your worth and rendering a considered verdict. They were being moved by their own interior, whether their frustration, their insecurity, their fear, their unexamined patterns of response to a world that has not treated them with particular kindness. You were the nearest available surface for what was already present in them. This is not a consoling fiction. It is Schopenhauer's metaphysical position, argued with genuine rigor across thousands of pages. The will in all people operates before thought, before genuine choice, before anything that could be called deliberate regard for others. The behavior that seems directed at you is almost never actually about you. It is the will expressing itself through a particular person in a particular direction, and that direction happened to point your way. Understanding this changes nothing about the behavior, but it changes everything about what the behavior means, and therefore about what emotional response it warrants. Here is the most practically important implication of this insight. If other people's behavior is driven primarily by their own interior forces that exist independently of you, then your emotional response to that behavior is far less about what they did and far more about what you brought into the encounter. Your sensitivity to dismissal is not caused by the person who dismissed you. It is caused by the significance dismissal holds. In your inner world, the specific weight that being seen or unseen carries for you, the particular history that made being dismissed feel like a verdict rather than simply an event. Your vulnerability to betrayal is not created by the person who betrayed you. It is revealed by it. The pain is real, but its intensity reflects something about what you had constructed around that relationship, the weight you placed on it, the expectations you attached to it, the security you derived from it, that was perhaps never as secure as it felt. This is not victim blaming. The other person's behavior is still their responsibility. But your emotional response, its intensity, its duration, its relationship to your sense of self, belongs to you. And what belongs to you can be worked with in a way that what belongs to others cannot. Schopenhauer was clear. The only domain where genuine improvement is possible is the interior, not the world, not other people, the quality and the resilience of your own consciousness. Let's examine what emotional unaffectedness actually means, because the term is easy to misread. It does not mean feeling nothing. Schopenhauer was not describing the cold, affectless, emotionally evacuated person who has suppressed their way to apparent stability. That person is not philosophically developed. They are defended. And defenses, however elaborate, are still organized in response to the things they are defending against. The defended person is still affected, they simply express it differently. Genuine emotional unaffectedness is the quality of being present to what is happening without being governed by it. Feeling the irritation without being driven by it. Feeling the hurt without being defined by it. Feeling the discomfort without being redirected by it from the path you had chosen. The feeling arrives. It is fully experienced, not suppressed, not denied, and it passes without having reorganized your interior around it, without having set a new emotional agenda, without having produced the chain of rumination and reactive planning that transforms a momentary difficult experience into a multi-day disturbance. This quality is not natural for most people. It is built through the specific philosophical understanding of what other people's behavior actually is, through the practice of accurate attribution, returning to others what belongs to them and retaining only what is genuinely yours. Through the development of an interior life rich enough that a single difficult interaction cannot reorder its entire landscape. Let's talk about the specific behaviors that most reliably trigger emotional disturbance and what accurate attribution looks like in each case. The first is disrespect. Someone treats you dismissively, speaks to you with contempt, or behaves in ways that signal you are not worth their genuine regard. The immediate emotional response is some combination of hurt, anger, and the urgent desire to correct the record, to make the dismissive person understand what they have missed. Accurate attribution looks like this. This person's dismissiveness is a report on their own interior. It reflects their insecurity, their need to manage their own sense of status through the diminishment of others, their unexamined relationship to their own worth. It is not a report on you, it is information about them. The hurt you feel is real, but its intensity reflects how much of your self-assessment you had placed in that person's regard. The work is not to stop feeling the hurt, it is to gradually relocate your self-assessment to a ground that other people's dismissiveness cannot reach. The second trigger is injustice. Someone takes credit you earned, enforces a double standard that doesn't apply to them, receives what you deserved without having done what you did. The emotional response is usually righteous indignation, the hot, energizing quality of having seen something wrong and wanting it corrected. This response is understandable. Sometimes it is even appropriate. Genuine injustice warrants genuine response. But the emotional disturbance that injustice produces often far exceeds what any strategic response actually requires. It consumes attention, energy, and equanimity in the service of rehearsing the wrong and fantasizing the correction. Accurate attribution here recognizes two things simultaneously. First, the injustice is real and is the other person's responsibility. Second, the degree of disturbance is yours to manage because the disturbance, however justified in its origin, is now happening in your interior and affecting your functioning, not theirs. Schopenhauer would say, address what can be addressed, with the minimum emotional cost that genuine response requires, then release what cannot be changed, not as capitulation, as conservation. The energy spent on disturbance is energy not spent on the work that makes the injustice increasingly irrelevant. The third trigger is abandonment in its many forms. Being dropped from consideration, left out, replaced, treated as someone whose absence is acceptable. The emotional response is usually a combination of hurt and the anxious assessment of what this reveals about your worth and your place in the social world. Accurate attribution here is the most philosophically demanding because abandonment tends to feel most personal, most like a genuine verdict on your value. But even abandonment is primarily a report on the other person, their priorities, their capacity for loyalty, their relationship to the people they involve in their life. It tells you something important and useful. It does not tell you what your worth is. The pain of abandonment is real, but it is pain about what you have lost, a connection, a sense of belonging, a source of meaning. That pain deserves to be felt. What it does not deserve is to be converted into a verdict on your fundamental worth by a person whose own judgment is shaped by the same irrational will that shapes everyone's. Now, let's examine the practice, the specific, daily, repeatable work that builds genuine emotional independence over time. The first practice is what Schopenhauer would call the philosophical pause. Before the emotional response has fully formed into a reaction in the moment between the behavior and your response to it, insert the question, whose is this? Whose behavior is this? It belongs to them, to their will, their history, their current interior state. What is mine here? The response, the degree of disturbance, the interpretation I am applying, the meaning I am generating from what they did. This separation between what belongs to them and what belongs to me does not eliminate the emotional response. It contextualizes it. It begins to establish the habit of accurate attribution that, practiced consistently, gradually reduces the degree to which other people's behavior can reorganize your interior without your permission. The second practice is the expansion of the attribution window. Most emotional responses treat other people's behavior as if it exists in isolation, as if the action appeared spontaneously, directed specifically at you, in a vacuum of motivational context. Accurate attribution expands this window. It places the behavior in the context of what you know about the person doing it, their patterns, their pressures, their own relationship to the forces that are moving them. Not to excuse the behavior, but to understand it. And understanding it makes it less personal, less like a verdict directed at you, and more like an event that passed through you on its way to being what it was always going to be. Schopenhauer's philosophy of the will provides the largest possible expansion of this window. All human behavior is the will expressing itself. All human behavior is, at root, the impersonal expression of forces that preceded you and will outlast you. The particular person behaving toward you is, in Schopenhauer's framework, a temporary expression of a universal force. Their behavior carries no more personal verdict than weather. This does not make it painless, but it makes it comprehensible, and comprehension is the beginning of equanimity. The third practice is the development of genuine interior wealth, the concept we return to throughout this series because it is the foundation beneath everything else. The person who is emotionally devastated by other people's behavior is almost always the person whose interior life does not yet have enough of its own to sustain them through the encounter. They are drawing their sense of worth, their sense of direction, their sense of meaning, largely from external sources, and those sources, when they fail or behave badly, take with them the sense of worth and direction and meaning that depended on them. The person with genuine interior wealth, with genuine intellectual engagement, genuine aesthetic experience, genuine private values that exist independently of social validation, encounters difficult behavior from a different position. The behavior happens to them, it does not reorganize them. Because the organizing principle of their life is not external, it is not available for disruption by someone else's will. Building this interior wealth is the work of years. It is not a weekend practice. It is the sustained, daily engagement with ideas and experience and honest self-knowledge that gradually builds a self so genuinely inhabited that the social world's weather passes over it, without fundamentally altering the climate within. Let's look at what this development produces, not in dramatic moments, but in the ordinary texture of how you experience daily life. The meeting where someone is rude is still unpleasant, but it does not follow you home. The interaction where someone dismisses your contribution is still frustrating. But the frustration resolves rather than accumulates. The relationship that behaves unexpectedly is still disappointing. But the disappointment does not reorder your entire sense of what is possible. Each difficult thing is experienced as a discrete event rather than as an addition to a running total of evidence about your worth or the world's hostility. The emotional response is proportionate, real, felt genuinely, and finite. It does not expand beyond what the event itself actually warrants. It does not spill into the next day, the next interaction, the next situation that has nothing to do with the original difficulty. Schopenhauer described the highest form of human experience as the quieted will, the state in which the irrational striving that causes most suffering has been temporarily stilled, allowing a quality of pure, calm perception that is free from the distorting lens of desire and fear. This state is rare and cannot be permanently maintained. But the practice of emotional independence, the gradual development of accurate attribution and interior wealth, brings the ordinary quality of experience progressively closer to it. The everyday experience of a person who has genuinely developed this practice is simply less turbulent. The same world, the same difficult people, the same behaviors that once consumed days of interior weather, these produce smaller disturbances that resolve more quickly and leave the interior cleaner than they found it. There is one more dimension to address, the one that most people most need to hear and most resist. The people whose behavior disturbs you most consistently are almost always the people from whom you want something, whose approval matters to you, whose regard you had placed some weight of your sense of worth on, whose behavior has the power to disturb you precisely because you had given it that power. The most difficult truth in this entire philosophy is this: the degree to which other people's behavior can disturb you is a direct measure of the degree to which you are still depending on external sources for internal stability. This is not a criticism, it is a diagnostic. It tells you with precision that no other instrument provides exactly where the interior work most needs to be done. Every person whose behavior consistently affects you beyond what the behavior warrants is showing you a place where your self-possession is incomplete, where the interior wealth has not yet been sufficiently built, where external sources are still doing the work that genuinely internal ones have not yet developed the capacity to do. Schopenhauer spent decades building the interior foundation that his early life had not provided him. His work is the evidence that the building is possible, that the interior can be developed to the point where the external world, however difficult, passes over without destroying what has been built. Here is the practice, stated as simply as it can be stated. When someone's behavior affects you, when the irritation, the hurt, the frustration is present and real, notice the response. Name it internally. This is irritation. This is hurt. This is the particular discomfort that this specific kind of interaction produces in me. Then ask, what is mine here? What in this response belongs to the event, and what belongs to what I brought into the encounter? The hurt that is proportionate to what happened is information about the event. The hurt that exceeds what the event warrants is information about me, about where the interior work needs to continue. Return what belongs to them. Their behavior is theirs, the product of their will, their history, their interior weather. You did not cause it, and you cannot change it. What you can work with is what is yours. The degree of disturbance, the interpretation, the meaning you are generating from their behavior about your own worth. Hold what is yours and work with it. Release what is theirs and let it complete its natural course in them, which has nothing to do with you. And build. Continuously, unglamorously, in the private engagement with ideas and genuine experience that gradually fills the interior with enough genuine substance that the social world's weather cannot reach the core. Schopenhauer did not promise that this work makes life painless. He was too honest for promises he could not keep. What he offered was something more valuable than painlessness. He offered the understanding, philosophical, structural, deeply earned, that the suffering produced by other people's behavior is almost entirely a function of what we contribute to it, of the dependencies we have placed in the wrong places, of the interior wealth we have not yet built, of the accurate attribution we have not yet practiced. The external world will always produce difficult behavior. That will not change. What can change, what only you can change, is the interior you bring to the encounter. Build the interior, practice the attribution, return to others what belongs to them, and discover what remains in you steady, clear, genuinely yours when the social weather has passed and the disturbance has resolved. That remainder is what Schopenhauer spent his life describing. It has been there all along, waiting beneath the turbulence. Yours to find, yours to inhabit, yours to keep.